Hello and welcome to another video to teach you about the wonderful world of Latin. Today's video will teach you about the imperfect present and future tenses of third conjugation verbs. So we remember that there are three different types of verbs: transitive, intransitive, and linking verbs. Linking verbs are verbs that connect your subject with a predicate nominative, so your verb sum esse. Then there are transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs can have a direct object, and intransitive verbs cannot have a direct object. Third conjugation verbs are transitive and intransitive verbs. And they're also just another group of verbs that follow your regular patterns of how to conjugate things. And we call these conjugations. The first conjugation and second conjugation you already know. Today we'll talk about our third conjugation, and in future videos we'll talk about the third IO and fourth conjugation and your regular verbs. So how do you identify what conjugation is what? If you remember, it's from your second principal part. First conjugation verbs have a long ARE. Second conjugation verbs have a long ERE. Third conjugation verbs have a short ERE. Now, there's also two smaller groups of third conjugation verbs. There's third IO verbs that have an IO in your first principal part, and these look very much like your fourth conjugation verbs that also have an IO in the first principal part, but fourth conjugation verbs have a long IRE in the second principal part. Your other group of third conjugation verbs does not have that O in the first principal part, so we are going to deal with them separately. You'll learn about third IO and fourth conjugation verbs in another chapter, and today we'll just talk about third conjugation verbs. So let's do that. Let's start with our present tense. You remember that the present tense can be a one-time action, like I am saying a word or I see the house, or it can be an ongoing action, like I am saying many words or I am watching the movie. Now, if you remember how to form our present tense for first and second conjugations, it would look like this. You take your stem vowel. You don't add a tense marker because it's present tense, and then you add your person and number endings, ost, mus, tis, end. This is exactly how you form your present tense for third conjugation, but there are a few differences. So here's an example of a third conjugation verb: gero, gerere, gessi, gestum, to manage, to do, to wage war. And the first principal part of all verbs is your first person singular present active indicative. So we can just move that right down into our first person singular present active indicative box of our chart. Then we need to use our equation to find our other person and number forms. First, you start with your stem. You find your stem the same way you do for your other conjugations. You take your second principal part and remove the ERE, the thing that tells you it's a third conjugation verb, or you remove the O from the first principal part. So your stem will be ger. Then you add your stem vowel. The stem vowel for third conjugation is an O, an I, or a U. It's O for the first person singular, an I for the second person singular, third person singular, first person plural, second person plural, and a U for the third person plural. Just like with your other conjugations, there is no tense marker for the present tense. Then you add on your person and number endings, ost, mus, tis, end. You already have your O for your first person singular, and then you add on the st, mus, tis, end. So gero, I manage; geris, you manage; gerit, he, she, it manages; gerimus, we do manage; Geritis, we or y'all are managing, and gerund, they do manage. So these are your third conjugation present active indicative forms and how you form them. Once you have all of these written down, pause the video or move on to your next one, disco, discere, didiki. Pause the video as you conjugate these forms and then resume the video to check your work. All right, you are correct if you said disco, I learn, discus, you learn, discit, he, she, it learns, discimus, we learn, discitus, y'all learn, or discunt, for they learn. Okay, let's move on to our imperfect tense. So the imperfect tense is your past tense, the continuous version of it. I was seeing the game, I used to watch the movies. And this is different from your perfect tense. I saw the game once, I have seen a movie once. It's over, it's done. So how do we form our imperfect tense, our continuous action? You remember our first conjugation and second conjugation verbs that used bom, boss, bot. Our BA is your tense marker, and then MST, mus, tis, ent was added on. Third conjugation does this very similarly. That it also starts with your stem. Just like for the present tense, you obtain your stem by removing your O or your ERE. So, ger. Then you add the stem vowel. For the imperfect tense, you don't have an I. You use a long E before your BA tense marker. So, gere, and then your BA tense marker, gere ba. So far, it's the same for all of your forms. Then you add in your MST, mus, tis, and ending. So, gere bom, I was managing. Gere boss, you used to manage. Gere bot, he, she, it was managing. Gere bamus, we were managing. Gere batis, y'all were managing. Or gere bont, they used to manage. So now it's your turn to practice this with your verb disco, discere, didiki. Conjugate this verb in the imperfect tense and pause the video to then check your work once you've completed it. Okay, hopefully you have our forms disque bom, I was learning, disque boss, you were learning, disque bot, he, she, it was learning, disque bamus, we were learning, disque batis, y'all were learning, and disque bont, they were learning. Now, it's time for our final tense, the future tense. This is something that happens in the future. So I will see the upcoming film, or I shall watch the new season of this television show, or I will see the game. If you remember, for the first and second conjugations, we use the tense markers bo, be, boo. Ama bo, ama bis, ama bit, ama bimus, ama bitus, ama bunt. For third conjugation, we do not use bo, be, boo. Instead, we use a tense marker and stem vowel that are one and the same. The am will be for first person singular, and a long e will be used for all your other person and number endings. This works as both your stem vowel and your tense marker. So, how do we do this? First, you start with your stem. Just like with your present and imperfect, it's GER from your first or second principal part. And then we add in our stem vowel and tense marker. So geram is your first person singular, I will manage. Then gere is your stem vowel, and tense marker for all your other forms. And then you add on the person and number endings. Gereis, you will manage. Geret, he, she, it will manage. The T makes that long E short. Geremus, we will manage. Geretis, y'all shall manage. And gerent, they will manage. The NT also makes that E short. So these are all of your future forms. Remember to never use bo, be, boo for the future tense of third and fourth conjugation. It's this am and long E that you will use for third and fourth conjugation. So now it's your turn to practice with the verb disco, discere. Pause the video, and once you're done, check to see how well you did. Okay, hopefully you wrote discam, I will learn, discase, you will learn, disket, he, she, it shall learn, discemus, we shall learn, discatus, y'all will learn, and discent, they will learn. Okay, so now that we've talked about our forms, let's talk about how you translate third conjugation verbs in these tenses. We've talked about this a little, but let's look at the differences in these very similar sentences. Magister docet discipuli discunt, magister docebat discipuli discebant, magister docebit discipuli discent. If you've noticed something, you may have probably noticed that all of these verbs are in different tenses. Docet and discunt are in the present, docebat and discebant are in the imperfect, and docebit and discent are in the future. Notice the bo, be, boo is future for doceo, docere because it's a second conjugation verb, but discent with that E is future for our third conjugation verb, discere. You also notice that just like all your other verbs, your subject is in the nominative case. This is true for all of your conjugations of verbs. So how do we translate these sentences now that we've understood all of our forms? So, magister docet, the teacher teaches, discipuli discunt, the students learn. Magister docebat, discipuli discebant, the teacher was teaching, the students used to learn. Are nice imperfect tense translations of was teaching and used to learn. And then magister docebit, the teacher shall teach, and discipuli discent, the students will learn. So now it's your turn to check your understanding, but first make sure to cross out that ES in the typo that I have here, and then resume your video to check your understanding. First, I want you to conjugate your verb winco, wincere, wiki, wictum in the present, imperfect, and future tenses, and then translate these very similar sentences. If you are not sure about all of your vocab, know that scribo, scribere, scripsi, scriptum means to write, just like script, the thing that's written down that various languages use. Once you have completed this work, call me over and I will check your work and then give you your next task once they are all correct. Thank you for watching this video and have a good day.